They blocked my chair at the will reading. 10 minutes later, one line flipped everything. On the day of the will reading, Marcus said, "Closest family only. You're not on the new revision." I opened the Union Blue binder. Book 74, page 213. EC 2010-478/CUY. Irrevocable unless jointly revoked in presence. Motion dismissed. With prejudice. I arrived 10 minutes early. The law firm hallway smelled of waxed wood and stale coffee. The gray carpet didn't give. You only heard a soft squeak of shoes. On the walls were black and white photos of strangers, all with folded arms as if guarding the doors. I gripped the Union Blue binder in my left hand. It was old, the corners a bit frayed. The label faded with the words, "Maple and Steel." This binder had followed me through 3 strikes and 1 audit. It wasn't pretty, but it knew the way into rooms with heavy doors. The will reading room was at the end of the corridor. A long oak table, high-back wooden chairs. On the table sat a water tray, plastic cups, tissues folded square like chess pieces. I had just touched the back of a chair when Marcus stepped in front of me. Navy suit, tight tie, a cold cologne. "You're not on the new revision," he said, low but firm. Tyler stood off to his brother's side. Denim jacket, dusty shoes. He tried to smile, pointing to the chair next to it. "Sit there, Dad. Probably more comfortable." I looked across the table. The attendee list sheet clipped under a plastic board. My name wasn't on it, but the invitation in my coat pocket was still warm. I pulled it out. The file code was clear. EC-2010-478/CUY. Date, time, and address matched. I set the letter on the table, square. "The invite is for Frank Lawson," I said. "Your Aunt Elaine wanted me here." Marcus curled a lip. "They revised it last year, Dad. The new one is for the closest family only." He hit the word closest like a nail into wood. Tyler looked at the floor. I didn't look at the two of them for long. I looked at the chair. Their bodies were blocking it, like a gate of power. I'd met gates like that before, at the steel mill in '95, at the health benefit talks. The time they asked me to sign a paper to simplify taxes. The price of convenience. "I'm going to sit in the right seat." "Sir?" A young woman's voice. The receptionist sat behind the front desk. Nameplate K. Mendez. I don't see your name on the list." She blinked fast, scanner in hand. I stepped up, handed over the invite. "Here's the code," I pointed. EC 2010-478/CUY. Date and time are correct. She scanned it, nodded slightly, but still glanced toward Marcus as if waiting for a cue. I opened the binder. Slowly. Inside was the original 2010 mutual will. I slid a stack of papers from a clear plastic sleeve. The red notary seal was still bright, the Cuyahoga County recording number stamped in the corner. Book 74, page 213. A capacity letter from Elaine's family doctor, signed 7 days before notarization. I didn't say much. I just set it in front of K. Mendez. "Please take this to Mr. Alvarez," I said. "I trust he'll understand." Marcus snorted. "That's outdated, Dad. The new one voids all that." He turned to the receptionist. "Get a manager. This reading is closed. We're the executors." I didn't turn around. I spoke quietly, just enough to carry. The 2010 mutual will has a clause. It can only be revoked if both parties are present. Tyler hunched his shoulders. Did you read it carefully, Dad? He tried to sound light, but his voice was rough. I nodded. I read it more carefully than you think. Kay Mendez hugged the stack to her chest. She shot me a quick look, apologetic. I'll take it in, she said, then slipped through the door at the back. The door closed, the latch clicked like a pen signing paper. Marcus clasped his hands. Dad, don't make a scene, he lowered his voice, eyes still on the door. My clients, my partners are here, our family's reputation. I looked at him. You say family, I said slowly. Who is the closest family if not the one who carried you through the flu? In the very chair they'd blocked moments before. No one pulled me back. The blue binder now rested on my lap like a shield. I looked at the wall. On it was a photo of a gray-bearded lawyer, hand on an open book. A life reduced to a few centimeters of paper. Heavy enough. The back door opened. A salt-and-pepper bearded man, gray silk tie, the tired eyes of someone who reads too much. Mr. Alvarez. He held the papers I'd given, flipping through them with deliberate rhythm. He stopped at the page with the notary seal. Stopped again at the last page where a small line most people would skip sat waiting. He looked up. Mr. Lawson, he said, not loud but clear. Come with me for a moment. Excuse me, this is a closed session, Marcus growled. We are administering the estate. No one gets. Alvarez didn't look at Marcus. We'll discuss that, he replied, calm. Right now, I need to speak to Mr. Lawson privately. He turned to me, gave a small nod. I stood. Tyler stepped back half a pace. His eyes darted between his brother and me. I leaned toward him. Sit, Ty, I said softly. I'm not going far. He nodded, still gripping the brim of his cap. We walked down a narrow hall. The door shut. Lobby noise turned into paper sounds. Alvarez's office had no low chairs, only a high counter for standing. He spread the documents like a blacksmith laying out steel. Straight, true, nothing extra. His finger touched the line at the bottom. Irrevocable unless jointly revoked in presence. He tapped on presence. Only revoked if both parties are present, he repeated, letting the words carry themselves. I want to confirm two things, he said. 1. Elaine signed with capacity, correct? I slid the capacity letter over. Signed 7 days before notarization. Doctor's name? Dr. Sue. He nodded. 2. You know they recently submitted a revision? I do, I said. I also know which term controls. I pointed to the page 213. Alvarez smiled the way someone does when they've found the exact detail they need. Good, he said. I'll take care of it. He flipped to a thinner sheet tucked between pages, a yellow note, someone's handwriting. I read 2 words. Maple and steel. He looked up. Does that phrase mean something to you? I nodded. Yes, it's a family thing. The shop. My sister. He slid the note down half an inch, revealing the edge of a supplement. Familiar, but locked. I didn't ask. I've learned to let keys find each other. He folded the file. Before we go back out, he said, lowering his voice, let me remind you. The old file has a clause. It's called a no contest clause. When the language sits in the right place, it knows how to protect itself. He glanced at me, eyes brightening a fraction. You understand me? I nodded. I understood very well. We returned to the lobby. Marcus stood ramrod straight, jaw tight. How long? He asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. Tyler stared at his shoes. Kay Mendez was back at her desk, arms around the file like it was a newly learned secret. I said nothing. I sat down. This time no one blocked the chair. The air changed shade. The pressure was still there, but it stepped back. Outside the window, Cleveland's sky was a pale lead. I heard the wall clock tick forward. I set the blue binder back in its exact spot on my lap. Heavy enough, warm enough. Marcus bent, dropped his voice by my ear. You're blowing up everything I've lined up. Clients are watching. My reputation. I looked straight ahead, no frown. You say reputation, I said. Reputation starts with sitting in the right seat. The back door opened. I got home just as the afternoon sun broke across the porch. The shadow of the maple tree stretched over the steps. Red leaves pressed like silent seals. I flicked on the kitchen light. The bulb flickered like an old man catching breath. On. Off. Then on again. The kettle whistled softly. Steam rose, thin as an old promise. Mr. Alvarez had been clear. The 2010 mutual will was valid, standing before any later revisions. I sat down, pressed my palm flat on the worn wooden table. The surface was cool. My heart had settled some. My head hadn't. Marjorie was gone in a winter that smelled of wet coal. At the funeral, my shoes soaked through to the heels, yet my left foot still felt like fire. She laughed easy, snapped at the right time. Cooked breakfast faster than the kitchen clock. Don't bend steel to fit a flimsy mold, she used to say. Shape it right. It'll hold up the whole roof. When she died, I brought the boys, Marcus 12, Tyler 9, into the kitchen. Taught them to pour milk without spilling. Plug in the kettle without a shock. They grew up with the smell of machine oil and the sound of ladles tapping pots. I clocked in, clocked out, picked up extra shifts, kept the house from falling into shortage. Elaine, my sister, was still well then. She loved tuning the old radio, turning the knob to the right frequency. The music came thick and warm. Then Elaine began to forget. At first, the house code. Later, doctor's appointments. At the worst, she called me by the name of a high school friend. I didn't correct her. Just made more porridge. Rewrote the med schedule. Stuck notes big as my palm around the house. I took her to the doctor. Got the first capacity letter. Still good. In 2010, we signed the mutual will. Notarized. County recorded. Everything by the book. A small line printed at the bottom. The kind people. We got ahead of greed. Marcus was always sharp. Polished shoes, dry-combed hair. He saw the world as a project that had to deliver on time. He went into real estate, built his image as fast as scaffolding. Pressure came like a shadow. Project debt, partners watching, every meal a negotiation table. He loved his kids, He also loved himself, with a hard kind of love, no room for public defeat. More than once, I bridged him alone. To ease the interest, as he said. Just this time, Dad, he promised. I nodded. A man sometimes learns fatherhood by losing money. Tyler was different. Hands always greasy, eyes soft. He was like me when I was young. Work with hands first, find words later. He opened a garage with a friend. The friend disappeared. The debt stayed. He came to the house, laid a handwritten debt list on the table, item by item, even the $50 I gave him for a tow 6 years back. I'm grateful, but I'm ashamed, he said, voice low, eyes on his shirt button. I poured tea. Shame that finds its way home is still good, I told him. He smiled crooked. I lost count of how many times I wired money to patch the holes they called circumstances, deadlines, tough clients. Sometimes I told myself, help them weather the storm now, later they'll stand on their own. Then one day they did stand, but stood blocking the door in front of me. The seat of the closest family didn't seem to be for the one who carried them through flu seasons anymore. I powered up the old computer. The inbox popped open like a loose drawer. An old email from Marcus showed up in search. I don't recall when I read it. Subject, status, estate timeline. The body was short. If we lock the estate early, I ease the interest. I sat still. One line, heavy as a room full of files. He wasn't cruel. He was afraid. Afraid of losing face. Afraid his partners would see he couldn't control his own family. A family group chat. Tyler sent a photo of faded receipts. Yellowed. Money for the first toolkit. Compressor repair. Rent for the shop that month near New Year. He typed, I owe. I remember. I looked at the photo. The phone went dark. My heart softened a beat, then hardened again. Remembering is good, but debt doesn't pay itself. I pulled the wooden box from under the kitchen. Inside was Marjorie's worn leather ledger, shop ledger. On the first page, she drew a long bench, wrote, Marjorie's bench. Where newcomers sit to learn, old hands sit to remind. Each chapter, a technique. Temper, anneal, quench, with notes on heat and time like lullabies. Between them, philosophy. When your hand shakes, stop the hammer. When your heart shakes, stop the pen. At the end of each section, she marked a small symbol. Maple and steel. Repeated, like a code. I once asked what it meant. She laughed. Maple is me. Steel is life. To last, they have to hold each other. Inside the ledger, she'd written her wish. Start a free summer class for local kids. Every summer, no tuition. Those who stayed the course get a trade school scholarship. I closed the ledger, stroked the cracked leather edge. This was inheritance money can't buy. I opened a drawer, pulled a folder of Elaine's care. Doctor visits, prescriptions, insurance bills. The 2010 capacity letter lay on top. Dr. Sue's handwriting, steady. The county recording number of the original will I knew by heart. I stacked everything back, neat to the point of funny. Me, a mechanic, now living by exhibits and seals. On the table, Chloe Wen's library card lay next to the kettle. She came by every 2 weeks, bringing books and pastries never too sweet. She cared for Elaine like reading an old book. Patient, never acting smarter than the page. She never asked what was hers. She only asked, maybe I'd let it flicker one more night. I paid, they forgot. I wrote that on the edge of a sticky note, stuck it to the Union blue binder. Not to blame, to remember. Some things need kindness. Some things need the right signature. The phone buzzed again. New email from the bank. Confirmation of updated sole signatory. I sipped tea, bitter at first, then warm. I opened the ledger again, flipped to the page where maple and steel was underlined heavier than the rest. The symbol repeated in the margins, at the borders, between technique and reminder, between craft and person. A hidden door, like the false compartment in an old wooden box. Maybe I hadn't looked closely before. Suddenly I understood why Alvarez frowned in his office. Some addenda only open when you know the code. I stood, filled the kettle. The tea smelled like air after a hot rain. Outside, the maple shed a few more leaves. No noise, just falling. Like loose change from an old coat. Like a message from a son learning to be a man. I was no longer a silent ATM. I was a man keeping boundaries, knowing the rules. Not to play games with my sons, but to keep the roof straight, just as Marjorie said. Shape it right, and it holds. I picked up the phone, called Alvarez. When he answered, I said each word clearly. Lock the estate. Set up the trust. The line was quiet a beat, then his voice dropped. That trust. For whom and under what conditions? I looked at the shop ledger, touched the words maple and steel, and saw Marjorie's bench in my mind, long, solid, with room for new and old. I smiled. We'll start with her wish, I said. And with the hours served. The next morning, I put on a checkered shirt, laced up shoes I'd polished the night before. Not to show off, just to remind myself. Today was about setting boundaries. The phone buzzed 3 times in a row. Verification codes from the bank. Confirm change of sole signatory. I typed in the digits. Felt like I was locking a door that hadn't been shut in years. At the teller's counter, the clerk smiled professionally. Mr. Lawson, I've received the email from Mr. Alvarez's office. From now on, all accounts tied to Elaine's estate are transferred into your sole ownership. Whitelisted signers, only you and Mr. Alvarez, with separate authorization. She slid me a stack of forms. We've activated 2FA. Every login or withdrawal request must pass through OTP. No payment, no access. Without final authorization, the system will automatically deny. I asked if the bank's coffee was free. I half joked. They laughed. I laughed too. We went through each account, checking, savings, one small CD. I signed 13 signatures, each one like driving a new nail into a frame. All prior verbal authorizations revoked. The clerk handed me a thick folder, the bank seal still wet. I brushed it lightly, ink sticking to my fingertip. This time, the ink was mine. Alvarez's office was on the 3rd floor. Frosted glass door, stainless steel nameplate. He pushed a draft toward me. Living Trust, Marjorie's Bench. The title centered, clean. We'll do it exactly by intent, he said. The money portion disperses by documented milestones. The non-monetary portion, shop ledger, curriculum for the free classes, shop equipment list, will be held by the successor trustee. I propose Chloe Nguyen, he added. I nodded. The girl shows up, stays, asks for nothing. She knows how to keep a flame without bragging. She holds the match. We read through at least one trade student slot. Complete 200 hours of community service in the steel skills class. Teaching, shop assistance, maintenance. Submit quarterly proof, class logs, activity photos, supply invoices. Not tamper with the shop ledger. Copies allowed, originals not altered. Any violation, trust disbursements suspended. And the no contest clause? I asked. Alvarez flipped to my personal will. Here, he tapped. Any beneficiary who files a contest seeking to invalidate this trust/will will be disinherited from the entire remaining estate. He looked at me. These words aren't to threaten, they're to keep peace. I read slow, each period like slamming brakes on an old habit, compromise to avoid fatigue. I'd walked that road long enough to know fixing aftermath was harder. Alvarez suggested adding a clarifier, community purpose. He typed, read each word aloud. This trust exists to sustain Marjorie's Bench, the free summer classes, trade school scholarships, preserving steelcraft and its ethics. I shut my eyes half a second, saw the bench in the Union Yard. Long, solid, enough space for new and old. I want a specific disbursement schedule, I said, by proof of milestone. It's here. Alvarez handed a chart. Q1. Buy hammers, pliers, heat gloves, check shop insurance. Q2. Fund one scholarship. Priority to students with school recommendation letters. Q3. Service the furnace. Replace exhaust fans. Q4. Buy steel plates and saw blades. Host a small exhibit of student work. All with 2FA, co-signed. Me and you, I reminded. Alvarez smiled. And invoices attached. Otherwise no payment, no access. That afternoon, Chloe stopped by. She set her library card next to the teacup, as usual. While the original stays here with you. I showed her the draft trust. She read slow, lips moving as she counted each condition. At the 200 service hours, she looked up. Fair, she said. Not revenge. Responsibility. From now on, you're successor trustee for the non-monetary part, I told her. If my hands falter, you keep the flame steady. Her eyes dampened a little. I'm no good at speeches, but I'm good at unlocking doors on time, she joked softly. I smiled. Which door is hardest? The door of family expectation, she answered. That was enough for me to trust fully. That night I wrote 2 letters by hand. White paper, black pen. Not long, no jabs. To Marcus. All communication through counsel. Accounts updated. No payment, no access. If you want to discuss scholarship and service hours, Mr. Alvarez will schedule. To Tyler. All communication through counsel. I acknowledge your debt list. If you want to join the shop and start service hours, Chloe will guide you. No need for apology. Need punctuality. I sealed them. The post truck outside clattered like a metronome. I thought of Marcus's phone, blinking with pings from partners, advisors, names that never smelled of machine oil. I set the Union blue binder on the table, took sandpaper to its frayed corner. The binder looked neater, like a wound just scabbed. Next morning, the bank emailed. Access alerts activated. Any unauthorized attempt will ping your number. I pressed confirm. The phone chimed, small but sharp. I glanced at the shop ledger. In its margin, Marjorie had once scrawled, "When hands shake, stop hammer. When heart shakes, stop signing." Back then I read it hard. Today I read it easy. By noon, Tyler showed. He stood at the gate, shoes dusted. I brought the repayment plan, he said, holding out papers. 18 months, a little each month. Also, I signed up to teach 2 nights a week in the basic skills class. But I know which bolts stick. I looked at his handwriting. Each number clear, each line dated. On time, I reminded. He nodded, his face lighter by half a pound. Late afternoon, Marcus texted, "Dad, you're embarrassing me in front of partners." I answered one line. Boundaries aren't embarrassment, they're signposts. 10 minutes later, he called. I didn't pick up. I sent him Alvarez's contact. Scene. Silence. Evening. Chloe and I went to the Union Yard. The Marjorie's bench sat under the tree, wood darkened by years. Chloe laid her tool bag on it, pulled out attendance sheets, timesheets, lesson plans. "I think the first class should just be safety," she said. "Gloves, heat talk, start with thin steel so kids see shape quick. When learners see shape, they stay." Right, I agreed. Don't let anyone leave empty-handed. Back home, Alvarez emailed the final PDF. "Trust executed," he wrote. "Filed notice to the bank, registers complete. No contest clause attached in your will." I scrolled to the last page. My signature sat beside his seal. Below it a small line. "Quarterly transparency rights." I smiled. "Paper keeps the door," I murmured. "Heart keeps the house." Night, I brewed tea. Chloe's library card lay by the cup, glowing under the kitchen light. I didn't switch it off right away. I let it shine, like a signal sent backward. To Mother, to Marjorie, to Elaine. All had done their part right. Now, it was mine. The mailman's clatter dropped envelopes into the box. I stepped onto the porch. A thick envelope lay on top. Law firm logo embossed in the corner. My name, bold. My hand didn't shake. I opened the lid, pulled it out, felt the paper stiff like a jab to the chest. Marcus had filed a contest. I went back inside, set the envelope neatly on the table, not on top of the shop ledger. I lifted the phone, called Alvarez. He exhaled short, like a furnace man opening the vent. "We have a voice, Frank," he said. But first, let the papers speak. I looked at the Union blue binder. It lay still, ready. Day 1. The thick law firm envelope sat in the middle of the table like a brick. Marcus filed a contest. Alvarez called right away. We'll file a response within 48 hours. I'll serve notice and request a summary hearing be scheduled. His voice was steady, like a furnace man trimming airflow. I nodded at the phone, set the Union blue binder beside the leather-bound shop ledger. Inside the ledger, the pressed maple leaf had darkened, thin as a stamp. I opened the computer and saw the first post. A local outlet quoting a close source saying a controlling father was blocking the legal inheritance of his 2 sons. Bullets, family feud, toxic relatives, revenge. I turned off the screen. Alvarez texted again. The no contest clause is the fence. We remind them of the risk when they sue. I let out a long breath. The tea was still warm. Day 2. A local blogger named Lexi Hepler posted a neutral explainer. What is a mutual will? Why could the 2010 version take precedence over recent amendments? The piece quoted Ohio law plainly, no scare words. At the end, evidence that usually decides things includes the original will, a capacity letter, signing photos, the county recording chain. I read slowly and felt my spine stand a half-inch taller. At the same time, Marcus had someone leak a snippet of texts. My father is obstructing the process. I just want to stabilize assets for the kids. I wrote in the margin of my notebook, a wall, but made of paper. Day 3. Tyler came by, hat in hand, eyes uneasy. He said Marcus called to push, stand together so it looks good. I poured tea and showed him the trust's ethical conditions. 200 service hours. The Marjorie's Bench scholarship. This isn't revenge, I said. It's the condition for growing up. He nodded. I'm not standing with him, he said softly. But I don't want... Alvarez filed a motion to dismiss with exhibits. The 2010 mutual will, the capacity letter, the county office signing photos, and the union letter confirming Marjorie's intent for free classes. He drafted a limited press note, quoting just enough law, no sword swinging. We don't need noise, he said. The law already spoke. Day 4. Marcus's email leaked. Not by me. He misforwarded it to Lexi while sending a statement, dragging along the internal thread. On my screen, I saw the line he wrote a month ago. If mother-father isn't present, we can sign faster. One sentence, and the dark room light switched on. Lexi didn't publish it in full, just clipped a piece and masked the name. But everyone in the family knew. Tyler texted, I know that line. I warned him. I stood there. Marcus isn't a demon. He's scared. Of losing face with partners. Of losing to his father like when he stood on the starting line as a boy. Some people cling when afraid. He pushes harder. Day 5. In the morning, I went with Chloe to the library. The archive room was quiet like a small chapel, smelling of old paper and raw wood cabinets. Chloe opened the steel cabinet, took out the shop ledger, and flipped to the spine. I saw a faint ink dot. Chloe lifted a magnifier, smiled. See the QR? Marjorie used UV-sensitive ink. I used to think it was a smudge. The girl turned on her phone's UV light. The QR appeared crisp like a tattoo. I touched it lightly. The page trembled under my thumb. Chloe scanned the code. Her phone buzzed. A link opened to the library's digitized folder, set to private. She typed the password. Maple and Steel. Audio came on, the reading room mic carrying Marjorie's voice. If Maple and Steel is read by the right person, Frank won't be alone. If I'm gone, open it at the library. Don't open it at home. Home is for memory, not for secrets. I didn't blink. The tone was low, a little hoarse at the end. Exactly how she sounded. The second clip. She spoke about intent, building the scholarship fund, the free classes, and a short line that stung my nose. Forgive in the right place, but don't drop your boundaries. Chloe opened the next attachment. A sealed codicil in PDF, timestamp 2010, with witness Mrs. Perez, the union, signing that she had read and stored the original. I saw Perez's name and remembered the union storeroom smell. Oil, dust, and her big laugh. I'll send this to Mr. Alvarez now, Chloe said. I nodded. The keys had found each other. Day 6. Alvarez updated me. I've served the other side the audio, the union letter, and the priest's letter. Priest? I asked. Father O'Malley, he explained. He wrote a statement that Elaine was lucid when discussing the 2010 will. Not hard legal evidence, but it adds a moral angle. I remembered Elaine taking me to Mass, her shoes slapping from the rain. She didn't talk much about God, only about discipline. Faith needs a calendar, too. In the afternoon, Marcus went on a local radio talk show, his voice smooth. I only want to provide stability for the grandkids. Older folks are often led by advisors. The host asked, "Do you have any documentation of incapacity at the time in 2010? He dodged. The host nodded and moved on. That night, Lexi posted a gentle fact check. No evidence of incapacity for the 2010 will's maker. On the contrary, there's a capacity letter from the family doctor and signing photos at the county office. At the end, a pebble dropped on the water. Honoring the dead's intent is the base of every decent settlement. Day 7. Mrs. Perez called. Her voice was still big, crisp, like a hammer setting a brace. I'll issue an official union letter confirming Marjorie put down the first scholarship deposit with shop bonus money and told me, if Frank tires, keep the flame for me. I thanked her. She laughed and warned, don't let noise mess up your hammer rhythm. Same day, Tyler sent a photo of the basic class sign-up sheet. He wrote, I'll teach Tuesdays, Thursdays. I'm starting with safety. I'll be on time. I replied, see the shape? They stay. A line Chloe once said. Day 8. Alvarez sent a case summary. Timeline. The other side files a contest. Court schedules a summary hearing for next week. If the court deems necessary, discovery opens. However, with current exhibits, he recommends immediate dismissal. Exhibits with the motion to dismiss. Will 2010. Capacity letter Dr. Sue. Date stamped photos at the county office. Union letter Mrs. Perez. Marjorie's recording. No contest clause. Attached as a warning. If Marcus keeps escalating, his risk of losing his share rises. Press note. Quote Ohio law in simple terms. Keep a non-confrontational tone. I read it all and closed it. Chloe stepped in and set down a snowflake-printed invite. WinterFest, Union Hall. They want you to speak about Marjorie's bench, she said. If you agree, we can introduce the class and the scholarship on the evening of the hearing. I thought a beat. I don't like crowds. but I like putting chairs in the right place. Day 9. A new attack piece popped up. A father locks assets, forces sons into 200 hours of community labor. I smiled for the first time all week. They couldn't tell punishment from service. I called Alvarez. "We won't argue online," he said. "Right, let the papers speak." That night, Chloe and I went into the library's small recording room. The mic clicked on. Chloe read the trust's purpose slowly. I read a passage from the shop ledger. "When hands shake, stop the hammer. When heart shakes, stop signing." Between the two lines, I could hear my own breathing, even, not rushed. I saw Marjorie past the glass, nodding. Day 10. A text from Marcus, for the first time after a string of tense emails. "Dad, stop and I'll withdraw. We'll negotiate." I stared at the screen and remembered him crying when he learned to ride a bike. Negotiation is how he breathes. But some things aren't on the table. Dead people's signatures, handwritten intent. A voice in a recording. I replied, "All communication through counsel. You can join the scholarship and service hours. That's the way." The dots blinked and went dark. Silence fell like the first snowflake of the season. In the afternoon, Alvarez emailed. The hearing summons had arrived. Date, time, planted right before WinterFest. He called. "We'll ask to be brief, relying only on exhibits. If the judge finds it sufficient, it'll be dismissed." I cracked a joke to release pressure. "Bring a good pen. Bad handwriting might get contested." He chuckled, warm. "I'm bringing a word hammer." I laughed too. Day 11. In the morning, Lexi posted a 5-minute video. 3 things to know before a will contest. Frames showed signing photos. In the morning, the county courtroom was full enough. No one noisy. Mr. Alvarez set the union blue binder on the table, open to the exact page of Exhibit A. The 2010 mutual will with the recording number. Next to it was Dr. Sue's capacity letter, Exhibit B. The signing photos at the county office, Exhibit C. He then presented the union letter from Mrs. Perez, Exhibit D, and the link to Marjorie's recording, Exhibit E, with the library verification code. I stood straight, hand on the bench edge, silent. The judge read the file quickly but carefully. Her eyes paused on the small print at the bottom of the will. Irrevocable unless jointly revoked in presence. She tapped her pen once. "For the party filing the contest, do you have evidence of diminished capacity at the time in 2010? Marcus's attorney coughed, flipped documents, offered hypotheticals. No paper, no doctor. Just suspicions. The judge lifted the capacity letter. "This is the family doctor's letter, dated 7 days before notarization. The signing photos have date and time. The union letter and the recording reinforce intent." She set the pen down. "There is no evidence of diminished capacity at the time of signing. Motion to contest. Dismissed with prejudice." A short gavel strike. Alvarez turned to me. "Done." I nodded. That's all. No clapping, no glaring. I heard Marcus exhale hard behind me, like brakes grabbing on dry pavement. The judge looked straight down at the rows. Also, the file contains a no contest clause. I advise all parties to read carefully. Court is not a place to test your luck. She closed the file. Everyone rose. I lightly touched the blue binder, shut snug. Paper keeps the door. The heart keeps the house. That evening, WinterFest. The Union Hall hung simple, warm string lights. Marjorie's bench sat in the middle of the foyer. Mrs. Perez took the mic, her voice still carrying nothing but a few excerpts from the shop ledger. I stood at the mic and looked down the rows. Chloe sat in front, her library card tucked beneath the timesheet cover. Tyler stood by the service hours sign-up table. Marcus was there too, at the back, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed somewhere on the wall. I read slowly. Marjorie wrote, "If there's still one person who can bend steel without bending their conscience, this shop stays lit." A murmur touched another murmur. I explained the trust conditions. The Marjorie's Bench Scholarship, 1 trade school slot each year. Free summer classes focused on safety, discipline, and craft. Anyone who wants any remaining assets, if any remain, owes 200 hours of service and must contribute to the scholarship. Quarterly transparency, 2 FA on disbursements. Successor trustee for the non-monetary portion, Chloe Nguyen. Mrs. Perez handed me a small wooden plaque carved with Marjorie's Bench Scholarship. She nudged me. "Hang it center, put it right." We lifted it together. In that second, I could see Marjorie smiling by the furnace, work shirt dusted in light. After the announcement, a wooden table opened along the side of the hall. Tyler laid down his repayment plan, 12 installments over 18 months, plus a schedule for 200 hours of basic instruction, 2 sessions a week. He signed and handed Chloe a copy to file each quarter. "I'm not asking for a reduction," he said. "I'm only asking for the shop's timetable." I squeezed his shoulder. "On time is half the work," I said. His eyes were wet, but his mouth smiled. Marcus came late. He looked at the scholarship plaque, at Marjorie's bench, then at me. No mic now, just 2 men by a wooden bench. He spoke low. "I lost." I kept quiet. He exhaled. "I was afraid of losing face, afraid partners would think I couldn't control my own family. I went too far." I nodded. "You're not a bad man. You just haven't learned how to lose the right way." He looked up, swallowed hard. I handed him an invitation envelope. A summary of service hours, how to contribute to the fund, a path back if he chose. "Redemption with conditions," I said. "The door isn't locked, but it doesn't open to old habits." He pocketed the envelope and stepped back. No promises, no pushback. A quiet retreat, facing the social consequences he created. Mrs. Perez clapped twice and called the hall back. She invited Chloe to the mic. The girl spoke briefly. "The library will open a reading room for theory sessions. The digitized shop ledger will be used for lessons. The original remains intact. If you want to learn, register at the table to the right. If you want to help, write down your free hours. The shop lights at 6 p.m. A few knit-cap teenagers grinned and lined up. I heard pens skating across the sign-up sheet, chairs sliding, elders asking about heat-resistant gloves. The community was getting to work. By night's end, I stood at the hall door, shaking hands, telling everyone on time. Father O'Malley leaned in. Today you didn't raise your voice, but yours carried far. I smiled, because the papers spoke for me. He nodded. Paper keeps the door. The heart keeps the house. That's right. Back home, I set the Union blue binder on the table. Chloe followed with an envelope I'd prepared. I gave it to her. This is recognition, not a reward. You hold the keys for the shop ledger and the lessons of this house. She held the envelope in both hands and nodded, like receiving a long borrowed book. If the day comes your hands tire, I'll keep time, she said. And if the day comes your heart tires, I'll call the time, I answered. We laughed quietly. Before lights out, I opened the cabinet. I took a pencil and drew a small square next to each milestone to fill later. See the shape? Stay, I whispered Chloe's line, reminding myself, discipline builds trust. I brewed another pot of tea. Maple leaves fell just loud enough to hear on the porch, not the silence of victory, the quiet of finally putting the right name on the right shelf. The phone lit up, a text from Tyler, a photo of the sign-up board already half full. A text from Marcus, just one line. I need time. I replied, there is time, with conditions. The dots appeared, then faded. Good. Everyone gets a rhythm. I set another envelope on the shelf, for Chloe in the morning. The quarterly report template, 2FA procedure, and a map of the tool room. A small draft slid through the window and fluttered the page edge. I pinned it with a clip and smiled. A light knock at the door. Mrs. Perez stood on the porch in a dark coat. She handed me an old envelope, edges yellowed. We were clearing the Union store room and found this in Marjorie's lockbox, she said. Marjorie co-signed a tiny shop parcel in Pennsylvania with a stranger. Want to look? She raised an eyebrow, half smiled. I took the letter, calm as a sawyer swapping blades after a long rip cut. Tomorrow, I said. Tonight I keep the light for the house. I turned off the stove and left the porch light on. The Union blue binder was shut. Maple and steel was open. In the quiet that remained, I could hear it clean, the house breathing in rhythm.